I don't know if number ones are in China like they are here, where they're up for a week and then off.
Yeah.
Is it the same way?
So,
because I was going to say you just had a number one in China.
Yeah, it was number one for 2 weeks. I think here's the interesting thing with the Billboard charts in China, which has been really encouraging. And at the same time, it's been bizarre over here because everybody's like, what does it mean? It's sales based, right? Like you get a number one over here. It's what label put money behind it or who got it to radio. We know how much it costs to get songs to radio, right? In China, they still download. So their mechanical royalties, number one. Number two, to get the Billboard chart, it's based on how many people bought it that week. So in other words, when Lay's record released, it went number one like the day after it released because it sold 555,000 units in 47 minutes or something like that. It's insane, dude.
Do you know how many units have been sold?
Now he's just about to hit 1 million as of last week is what I saw.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So will you be administered a plaque?
Great question. I have no idea.
From China?
I think so. I don't know. I don't know that process. I will say it's been exciting, obviously, because it's, especially looking at it from an analytical standpoint, I've always like monitored what my songs do. But this was a whole other realm of like, first of all, a new audience, a whole new industry. The Chinese music industry functions in and of itself. And that was something where I was like, when it happened, I was like, I need to learn about how this functions. Because if I don't, I have no idea what any of these accolades mean. I have no idea what's impressive and what's not. And then I also need to know, how am I going to collect my royalties as a songwriter? Because we know how hard it already is everywhere. And what does it pay? Right? Like, what does it pay compared to what we get over here?
Yeah, I looked it up on ChatGPT last night, and it was very like, there's not really any data.
No, and that's the other thing is like, we don't have access to platforms. And that was something that I had to learn really quickly about Lay, for instance. So they had reached out, a song that I had written, the one that went number one, I have 2 songs on his record, but the song that went number one was just a demo that I wrote a couple of years ago in LA with 2 buddies of mine. And it was a song that had a life of its own. Like people were interested in it. I remember when we submitted it, like there was a lot of talk about, oh, we want to pitch this to Bieber. We want to pitch this to Maroon 5. And you know how it is as a songwriter where you're like, cool, hit me when you do that. And they want to cut it. So there were all these like random opportunities for it. And I was like, all right, like there's obviously something to this song, but it was like the most basic demo. It's a piano vocal. We wrote it in a hotel room. I had like a 30-something key keyboard, so I only had enough to like create a quick like keys loop and go to town on it. And I just kind of left it at that, and everybody seemed to love it. And then fast forward a couple of years, one of my co-writers reached out from LA and was like, hey, just FYI, there's this artist that is going to cut the song. I was like, oh, okay, who is it? He's like, his name's Lay Zhang. He's a K-pop artist. He's technically an M-pop or C-pop artist in China. He comes from the K-pop group EXO, though.
EXO kind of broke K-pop, right?
They're one of the groups that really like kind of blew up that space, especially over
like
here
globally.
in the States. Yeah, you got BTS, EXO, like you have all these like pinnacle K-pop artists. And they were like a group.
And real quick too, so do those stand for China?
C-pop is
C-pop.
C-pop would be Chinese pop.
Okay.
M-pop is Mando pop, so Mandarin.
Interesting.
Trust me, I got corrected by Lay Zhang's fans. They're great, by the way. I don't know what they call themselves. I probably should. I should look that up.
Oh. Zangers.
I mean, it would be good. Zanger. No, they were like, oh, we love the song. Just FYI, it's technically Lay is C-pop or M-pop, which makes sense. Okay. But he keeps getting referred to obviously as K-pop because he broke as a part of EXO. And there's a whole bunch of drama going on with that because EXO is about to come back apparently at the end of this year, which is great timing, I think, for this song, right? Like not a bad time to have the song go out with Lay when he's about to go back and do this like reunion tour with EXO. But I've learned a lot very quickly.
Yeah, I can't imagine what it's like to have something like that happen and be so removed from it at the same time.
That was the tough part because, I mean, you know, this industry, we have to celebrate our wins whenever we can, right? Because it's like songwriters' pay is awful and we don't get rewarded with a lot of financial benefit unless you're crushing at US radio or something like that, right? So every time I've got some sort of win, I try to find the way, like, let's celebrate this. And the ironic part is the day that it happened, my manager was going out on maternity leave. My fiance had a dental procedure. So she was like high as a kite. And I was like, cool, I got a number one. Nobody's here to hear it. And it has been good. Like, I've been celebrating a lot recently with a bunch of my people, but it's very different than if you have a number one here. A number one here, like, your PRO is like, we're going to shut it down and we're going to celebrate on the rooftop. And everybody's going to come and we're going to present you with your plaque and this and that. And that's awesome. This was like, what does this even mean? And to me, it was when I learned that it was all sales based. And then I started seeing all these posts about how it was like breaking records in China with how quickly the records were selling. That's when I was like, oh, okay, this is like a big deal. Mm-hmm. So that to me was encouraging more than anything. And I also just kind of realized too, like, we can celebrate our wins, but at the end of the day, like, it's what matters to us. And for me, I've just started to like appreciate the fact that I have the opportunity that I get to watch these videos of like 80,000 fans in an arena singing a song that I wrote in a hotel room. And that to me has been more encouraging as my win out of this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It does something that a plaque can't do or a party on a rooftop. I'm not saying I don't want them, but
yeah. But now it's bigger than you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it also made me, the thing that I'm learning out of this that I've really enjoyed is it kind of forced me into this realm of understanding a whole other country's industry, right? I had no interest in what is the Chinese music industry? How does it function? And now I have an appreciation for it. And I found these incredible Chinese artists that I had no idea existed because they're not really big over here. And they have their own streaming platforms, right? Like, they don't have Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, whatever. They have their own streaming platforms and music platforms, QQ, QWoo, NetEase, there's a couple others. But I've had to learn about how that process works because I'm like, well, what does that mean over here?
Yeah, let's dive. Can we dive into that?
Yeah,
because I'm super interested in it.
Yeah.
I'm interested in that. And I had Kip Moore on last week, and he was talking about he's huge in South Africa. Like, he sells out stadiums there in Australia and in Europe.
Yeah.
And I think, and maybe it's more of a Nashville thing, but we think like kind of Nashville, like you get very kind of like zeroed in on country radio, number ones. If I don't have a number one, I ain't making money. I need hits.
Yeah.
And so we don't ever think about emerging markets, you know, or at least I don't. And until we started talking, and I was like, there's a globe of people that love music.
Yeah. That's the one thing that's universal, right? Like, the one thing that doesn't change, doesn't matter what market, at the end of the day, people love music and music speaks and translates. Whatever style of music, doesn't matter. But it translates the exact same way.
100%.
Right?
100%. Yeah. It moves people emotionally like nothing else. And I think that this is a great example and a great conversation starter to not only dive into like your experience with China and your experience in having that and figuring out things, and you're probably still figuring them out. Like, you're like, I don't know if I'm going to get a flag. But that, and at the same time, even like start to get people listening, thinking about like, how could I maybe get into a different market? Yeah.
And I think that's something that gets lost on artists a little bit, is like, you forget about, we get so tied in and focused, like you chase what Nashville is doing, right? Like, you see, got to get that, write that number one. And that's all great and fine. But at the end of the day, like, we can't forget as artists and songwriters that we're writing music to impact people. And there's a lot more people than just the people in our genre or in our industry. And that's, again, I never thought about, I wasn't writing K-pop when I wrote the song that they cut. Now I'm being asked a lot more to do these K-pop camps, and that's all great.
Did they just basically take your tune, change it to a different language?
It's in English. The one that went number one was the English version.
Wow.
Now they did a Chinese version as well, and I was back and forth with them. I was on text with Six, who's Lay's A&R, and we were back and forth on notes and mixed notes, and like I ended up going and replaying the production because I was like, this is a demo. It can be so much better. And I went and played it instead of on a 37-key keyboard. I went and played it on a real Rhodes and sent it. And they were like, oh, we love it, but we love the original. And there's something magical that just happened there because I was limited, right? And I look at that from the producer side. I think because I was limited in a hotel room with a 37-key keyboard, I only had so many options, which helped me not overthink. We wrote a very easy listening song, Melodies That Matter, because we didn't have a lot to work with. And it made us not overthink. The production didn't get in the way of the songwriting. It forced us to write just a good song. But when they ended up cutting it, they cut the English version first, and they had a dialect coach to be able to help Lay get the English. And I think Lay's English is pretty great from what I've heard, but they had a dialect coach. They cut the English version, and then they cut the Chinese version and sent that over, and just made sure that we were good with how it translated and how it sounded in Chinese.
Cool. And then the rest is history.
Yeah, rest is history. I'll say this. I think the process of it to me was the most surprising because again, they reached out, the song ended up in his hands, and then they ended up reaching out looking for more songs, and I sent the A&R a handful of more songs and was like, hey, here's a bunch of songs I have sitting around. And they ended up cutting another one that I had written with a buddy of mine, I think probably in 2018, kind of an R&B vibe. It's called Ordinary Human on the record. And they only cut the Chinese version of that one. But watching that played in some of these massive stadiums has been incredible.
Because that charted, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that hit number 12. So I got number 1 and number 12 on that record on the Billboard charts.
Wow.
Insane.
So all of a sudden you have this great success. You're like, I got a number 1. And it's crickets.
Yeah.
Probably very different than like what we all think it's going to feel like.
Yeah. I had to remind myself to be excited.
Yeah, because the road beats you up so much that by the time you get to the top of the mountain or whatever, you're like, oh,
for me,
this is not immediate feeling.
Yeah. For me, I think the thing that was the most encouraging for me was watching the actual song be played in arenas.
Yeah.
That was a game changer.
Let me fix this.
Yeah. I thought it was a water pipe or something. Oh. Rain. I was like, what is that?
Sorry.
Oh, you're good. I mean, very soothing, though. I like the vibe.
Yeah. I thought it was something breaking.
I thought it was like a water line behind the wall.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, dude. I was like, something's breaking on us. Okay. Back to where we were.
Yes.
So you have this moment. It's amazing, but also you're like, okay, it isn't what you think it is.
Yeah.
And then now you have to figure out the hard stuff, which is getting paid.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's the music business. Why did we move here? You know why?
Correct.
Like, you came here because you wanted to make money doing the thing you love.
Yeah.
So now the question is, Mark, how do you make money?
I'm still learning. I'll say this. I've always been, and this is just who I am. I've been this way since I've been in the industry, but I've always been one to, number one, I always kind of take the back entrance, not on purpose. It just tends to happen that way. My first number 1 is a Chinese number 1, right? Like not the way I would have done it on paper. Still cool though. I've kind of fallen into some of these realms. I've done a lot of things in this industry. I live in Nashville, but 75 to 80% of my work comes out of London and LA. Guess it would be the other way. But I've always just kind of done things kind of my own route. And part of that is always the business side of things. I like the business side of things. I know there's a lot of creatives that don't. But there are parts of me that really love and thrive on the idea of like, I'm running a business here as a producer, as a songwriter, as a film composer. How do I make all these things work in tandem? And so for many years, I've kind of built a team around that and gone, let's do things the way that we're going to do them. And we'll put people in place and hopefully work with people that we love as time goes on. And this was no different. So when it landed, I started reaching out to some publisher friends, people who might understand the Chinese music industry and go like, hey, do you have any K-pop cuts, C-pop, M-pop, whatever? How do you collect? How's that whole scenario work? And I was told by multiple publishers, a couple people at labels as well, that it's really tough to collect from China. It can be hard because the numbers aren't super transparent. They like to hide things, and I just started sitting back going, okay, well, I'm not going to just let this slide by. I want to figure out, what does this look like for me? And so I started doing a little bit of research. And one of the things that I was told was a lot of publishers like to take buyouts up front, even on the publishing side, because then they'll get paid up front and then they don't have to worry about, trying to go and collect. Now, while that's all good and fine, and there were upfront payments on these because I also produced these songs, so there were producer fees. And they also
own your writers and publishing on it?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Rare.
Yes. And that's the thing.
And producer.
Yeah. I've stayed independent for many years now. I've kind of built a team around that. Partly because I've been doing so much in sync, and that's really beneficial when you're independent, right? But I also have just had great relationships with artists and publishers in town that I was writing with many artists and teams that I love working with. All that to say, I did learn that in China, you do have to have a sub-publisher to collect your money. Now, even with major publishers here, they need to contract, whether they have a Chinese office, if it's a major like Warner or Universal, they need a sub-publisher who has a direct license deal with the music services over there, their DSPs. Because the way that the payments get paid out, and this is basically what I learned from the company that I'm doing my sub-publishing deal with over there. And what I really appreciated was when I reached out to them, they were because I was getting reached out to by a handful of sub-publishers over there when the song got cut. So I was like, okay, there's obviously something happening here. I need to understand why they're reaching out and how it affects me and how do I collect. So I ended up talking to a few different sub-publishers, ended up kind of really falling in love with this one. Their name's Outistry. They're under the UMG Universal's umbrella. And the reason being is they took the time to really explain the whole industry to me. I did like an 1.5 hour long call with one of the employees there. And she just kind of sat down and explained to me how the whole thing works. And she explained that with Chinese artists, essentially what happens is they have to have, as the sub-publisher, an actual license agreement with the DSP. Because when the songs get kind of released, I don't know what the timeline is for this. We're about to find out. But after the songs release, because they're still downloading music over there, they stream as well. But before it goes to streaming, they release them exclusively for 30 days. Artists have the opportunity to do a 30-day exclusive with one platform, similar to like what a couple artists have done over here where they're like, I'm only going to be on Spotify. But for instance, Lay had a 30-day exclusive with QQ, which is I think their biggest platform. And it kind of forces users to go over there and use that platform, number one. But number two, it's only available for like digital download. It's not available for stream yet. So if you want to hear the music, you got to go buy the album. Just
the whole album, or can you buy singles?
I think you can buy singles. I'm not fully sure. Unfortunately, we don't really have access to QQ and all these others over here. So it's been hard. I've been trying to like understand it because I've been really intrigued.
Like I'm curious what the download is. Is it like 99 cents US, or $1.29?
Yeah. So
US?
It's obviously, you can go look at what the prices are.
In yen?
And it's actually, it's Chinese yen, I guess. So you can translate that. It's very similar to what the cost would be over here. But from what I've learned, and this is something that K-pop artists seem to do really well, and I think the K-pop industry, you get merch a lot of the time with your download. So there's like things tied to it, whether they're like digital tokens or coins or like a CD box set kind of thing. And it seemed, from what I was seeing happen, it seemed like that's something that happens a lot over there, where you buy a record and you get some like trinkets with it. So you feel like you're getting something for it, because you're not buying a CD anymore. You're not buying a vinyl. You're getting a digital album. So you want to get something for your money.
Yeah,
which
physical.
I get. Yeah.
That's cool.
But what ends up happening is all of that mechanical sales money, from what I understand, it goes into the like pot, right? And then they kind of split it up, and there's percentages for publishing and master shares and whatever else. I don't know what those percentages are. I tried to calculate it based on what Outistry was sending me. But essentially what happens is they take the percentage of this is how much is going towards copyright and publishing for songwriters, and then they divide it by how many songs are on the record. So there's 13 songs, I believe, on Lay's record. So they look at, this is the total amount of money so far that's come in for the record. Here's the publishing split divided by 13 songs. That gives each song a value of publishing. And then that value of per song gets split amongst whatever the splits are on the songs.
Now explain real fast for listeners that don't know how it would work in the States versus that.
Yeah, in the States, obviously, we have performing rights organizations, and they have a PRO in China called MTSU, and I believe they're still involved. But over here, we get our royalties specifically from our PROs, BMI, ASCAP, CSAC. So if you release a song over here, you have one entity that you are tied with, your association, and they're there to be able to collect for you. And you'll see your quarterly royalty statements based on what those songs did, whether they went to radio or just streaming.
But the publishing is not split by how many songs are on the record.
Correct.
That's the big thing I want to like hammer home.
For sure.
Because like, again, that's where the money's made is on hits.
Yeah.
So like you saying that right now is like a little deflating, but at the same time, it's like kind of nice for everybody that was on the project.
And it panicked me at first, because I was like, I got the number one song. And then I was like, well, it's kind of just split from what I understand. And what I got from the conversation with the sub-publisher was like, well, everybody's getting the same amount per publisher or per song. And then based on whatever the song splits are. But then once again, at the same time, telling myself like, no, dude, you still got the number one song. Doesn't change that, right? And that's something we have to keep forgetting. We like to monetize our successes so much in this industry because we aren't paid fairly. And we spend so much time going, well, how much is it going to make me? And that I had to like put that aside. Yes, I want to make money from this record. I want to be able to like have it, fuel my business and go, yes, look what I've made on publishing. Because, like in this industry, that's one of our assets as songwriters is catalog and intellectual property. So I want that to be a rising factor. But at the same time, I also want to celebrate the fact that I have the number one record over there,
But so publishing split
Yeah.
by the songs. So 13 is writing same and is producing the same.
Publishing and writing, from what I understand, it's all one entity there, right? Okay. So it's like it's copyright. It's really looked at as who has the copyright, and that songwriter, it is all one entity. Now, whether you have a publishing deal or not, that's a whole other conversation where if you have to split it with your publisher or whatnot, but they're going to pay this songwriter, this composer, their copyright percentage on the song.
Okay. How does being the producer play into this?
Yeah. So many people,
because this is a gray area for me. And I think for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because usually like musicians on records don't get paid unless it's for, I think, mechanicals, and it's a small percentage.
Yeah, with neighboring rights a lot of the time
something
too.
Like that in the States.
Yeah.
And then, but a producer plays a bigger role. And is that negotiated up front generally for you to work with the artist in Nashville?
Yeah. So like for me here in the States, it depends on if I'm obviously working with an artist with a label or an independent artist. As a producer, whole other side of the realm, right? Like does not have to do with the songwriting. I can be a songwriter on it. That's that world. But the master side of it, right? Like we'll call it physical, but like the physical song itself, the creation of the song, the master as a producer, there's usually a percentage, depending on what the deal is, that you have a royalty in, right? And it's usually, we call them points still to this day, but like a lot of the times that percentage is around 15 to 20%, the producer's share. And that allows you to...
Of the master.
Of the master.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
That's a big chunk.
Now, K-pop will not do master points for producers usually. They'll buy out. They'll give you a hefty producer fee. You know, you can, depending on who it is. So you can negotiate your producer fee and get paid up front, but rarely, and I've heard this from many levels of producers, rarely will K-pop artists do master points on the back end. And that was the scenario in this as well. Now, neighboring rights is a whole other thing I'm looking into right now, because neighboring rights essentially is there to be able to pay non-featured performers, which are session musicians. Now, mind you, on both of these songs, again, because they were demos, I'm the sole musician on all of them. Right? I played every instrument on them because, once again, they were demos. I never hired anybody out. I would have loved to, but they loved the demos. So there is obviously over here, we collect neighboring rights via Sound Exchange. Over there, I think it's Kavka, C-A-V-C-A, that pays neighboring rights. The whole website's in Chinese. So I don't get me wrong. I spent a couple hours the other day using Google Chrome to translate the website to see if I could navigate my way around it to figure out, how do I get paid my neighboring rights share? And will I? And it sounds like I can lean on the sub-publisher a little bit to help me out on that, which is great.
That's good.
What that translates to financially, I don't know, but
interesting.
We'll learn.
So in the States, generally you get paid a year after you're number one.
Yeah.
Is it that way as well with China, or
No, it sounds, and that's the funny part. I was told by so many publishers when it first happened, and I was like, I need to get on top of this, make sure I have like everything registered properly and whatnot. I was told by many publishers, like, yeah, we've had songs out in China and do well in China, and it's been 10 years and we haven't seen anything. And I was like, that just feels wrong. When I had the conversation with the sub-publisher, they were like, well, you'll probably see your first payment in the first quarter of 2026. So we're only talking a couple months here. So I was like, all right, why am I being told so many things from publishers over here that are having trouble collecting? This sub-publisher, mind you, I haven't gotten a payment yet, so we'll see what actually happens. But to me, again, I'm very much the like, I'm going to go figure it out myself, because I don't, as much as I love working with great teams and great people, the business side of me is like, I'll figure it out. I'll go find out. If that means going and finding a sub-publisher in China that I can have a conversation with, because I want to understand it. If you're going to tell me you're not going to collect royalties for 10 years, I want to know why. I'm not just going to be like, all right, well, that's just how it goes. I want to know why. So even if that was the case where it's like, hey, you're probably going to have a hard time collecting from China, I wanted to know why. So I hit the sub-publishers up, had a couple great meetings, and learned that it really isn't that hard. It's just a matter of making sure you're set up and you have somebody over there with a direct license agreement that is able to actually collect from the DSPs. Because they do not disperse the money. Over here, the DSPs, Spotify, Apple, Tidal, they all disperse the money through PROs and the MLC for mechanical licensing. Over there, they distribute that copyright royalty directly to publishers who have writers with the copyright. They have to distribute it, I guess, directly to them through a license that they have. But all these sub-publishers have to pay for a license to have these deals with the DSPs over there, which I found really interesting, because that would be like over here, us having direct agreements with Spotify, or our publishers having direct agreements with Spotify going and collecting on our behalf directly from Spotify, as opposed to the MLC and BMI and ASCAP and all them going and collecting where they're supposed to. So it's going through a proper process.
It's
crazy.
A lot.
Yeah. Now, what works better? I don't know. I will say this. The one thing I learned about Lay in general, but also C-pop, M-pop, K-pop, that whole realm, the one thing that industry does so well, or that genre, is builds fan bases. The fans are so invested in the artists that it fuels these incredible artist careers because the fans are willing to pay for their merch, no problem, willing to pay for physical copies of their record or digital albums. They buy tickets. They travel all over the world. It is such a cult following in such a good way. And I've learned that even just from being a songwriter on Lay's record, the amount of Lay fans that I've connected with on social media has been incredible. And they know everything about him. And that's inspiring as a songwriter when you're writing for an artist. I didn't know I was writing for Lay at the time I wrote the songs. Now it's a whole different story, but it changes my perspective now as a songwriter. If I am writing for an artist that's maybe in that realm, I'm thinking of those fans because they're so invested in these artists and they care about the story. They care about what the song is. The amount that my 2 songs on this record have been, I don't want to say deciphered, but looked at from a lyrical perspective, even in the translation, by fans has been mind-blowing. And it makes you as a songwriter sit back and go, people do really care about the lyric. Over here, we get so caught up in what's working at radio. What do people want to sing? And at the end of the day, melody wins. We know that. Like, you can think about the greatest songs in history and some of the lyrics are nonsense, but the melodies are so good. And they last. They stand the test of time. Thriller. What's the lyric about?
That's what just came into my head, bro.
Right?
I was thinking him.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Thriller. To this day, even through the chaos of the Michael Jackson disputes that have gone on for years, Thriller is still one of the most addictive songs written to date. And nobody really knows what it's about. I mean, there probably are a lot of people that have a very specific, this is what he wrote it about. But that melody took. And that's what stands the test of time. This is totally, and we do as songwriters kind of get into that process of, I'm just going to write the best melody and whatever's working at radio, especially in country now, right? We're like kind of chasing these things and trying to, we are in a town of storytelling. So we are focused on great songwriting. And I'm not saying we've strayed away from that by any means, but we are chasing a lot of the time what's working at the moment. And I don't think they care as much over there. There were like so many different viewpoints on what the song was about, the one that went number 1. And they're all very similar, but all the artists are like trying to tie it to Lay personally. And I do believe Lay chose songs that he personally related with lyrically. But at the end of the day, too, he wants great melodies and a lyric that makes sense to his story.
Yeah, man. That's pretty crazy. But now you have like this open door and this through line to understanding a lot more about it. So I'm almost curious from this point forward, are you already thinking like, I wonder how I could get more cuts in China?
Yeah. That was something that was discussed with the sub-publisher. Obviously, they were really excited. I was excited to start working with them. We actually just kind of like inked stuff on contract this week.
Because they'll get a percentage of
yeah, and obviously like we had to go through some discussions on that because I'm like, these songs are already solicited, so really you're just adminning these. Mm-hmm. So we had to kind of talk about percentages there because I'm like, I'm not asking you. The song's already landed. I really just need you to admin it. That said, first thing they said post that was when we signed, like, we want to represent you over here, so like, can you get us catalog? And we'll go by song agreements, which is cool. So I just spent like 3 hours the other day going through my catalog of, 10 years of songs that are still available that, I think have the right ability for that, what I'm learning about that Chinese and K-pop space. But yeah, they're immediately starting to pitch my songs and represent me. And they have the links with artists over there. And I've learned a lot about artists I had no idea about over there that are incredible. And the other thing that's been really inspiring for me is I do a lot of like cinematic, because I work in the film world and I score and I do film trailers. So a lot of my like fun work and a lot of the like sync stuff that I do is very cinematic. And that's done really well for me in the sync space. Over in China, there's a couple artists that are top of the charts, and their stuff is very like League of Legends cinematic. So like the cinematic space, that is mainstream over there, which is really exciting.
It's like a genre,
yeah,
in and of itself.
Yeah. And it's getting more popular over here. I've noticed over the past couple of years of doing a handful of these film trailers for like large format production companies and film companies. I've gotten a lot of requests from labels now to trailerize one of their artists' songs. So like trailer remixes are becoming more popular, not just in placements in film and TV, but for DSP release as well. I think people are interested in like the epic cinematic type listening experience.
Why do you think that is on the cinematic version of a song? That's what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a trailer to the song?
No, it'll be a full remix? Format. It's a remix, but instead of it being like when we think remix, we typically our minds immediately go like EDM, right? Mm-hmm. Like very electronic.
Yeah.
Because that's what remixes became.
It's like
now there's a whole world of remixes happening that I'm doing a lot of where it becomes cinematic, right? Like it's like hearing a film trailer, something behind a film trailer, big epic drums and taiko drums and whatnot. There's an influx of people listening to trailerized versions of songs, which are just more epic versions of the song.
What's driving that?
I don't know. My theory is I think we relate it to, what do you feel this is why I love doing film trailers, by the way. What do you feel when you watch a film trailer? You have 2 minutes, right? And this is also the reason film trailers pay so much is because it's all marketing money at the end of the day. They need to sell that movie in 2 minutes. And if you take the music out of a film trailer, and any film in general, it kind of loses everything. So that music is the selling piece of that film. And you have 2 minutes to do it. So the way I've always looked at it as a trailer composer, you've got like 3 scenarios where you're like the beginning, the middle.
That's a story.
Yeah. You're telling a story in 2 minutes.
Sonically.
And I think that's why people like the trailerized versions of songs. If they hear a song they already love in a more dramatic space, that's intriguing because you're relating it with with visuals, right? You may not even have a visual, but like hearing that you don't realize how much you love film trailers until you're like, oh, I actually kind of fell in love with the music of that ad. Because at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's an ad for a film.
Yeah. And there's a lot of money in film trailers.
Mm-hmm. That was the start of...
That's what I heard, like for sync stuff.
Yeah.
Like if you want to make the big bucks.
Yeah. That's where I've made my most money is film trailers. And I love doing them. I kind of fell face first into it. It was just like... Met some supervisors from doing sync camps, for whatever reason, found out like, oh, you do the cinematic thing really well. And I liked it. I think for the same reason. I don't think I realized how much I liked dramatic storytelling in instrumental music. So I got contracted to do a couple film trailers. And then when I saw how much the contracts were, I was like, I should do this more. Especially as a songwriter, right? It's like,
oh yeah.
That's where you got to kind of find, how do I make a living doing this? And that was the thing. Again, back to the business side, I'm always looking at ways, how can I sustain my life just doing what I love? And that means doing more than just one thing in this industry. Because I've always said, I don't think there's a healthy middle class in the music industry, right? You're either making a lot of money because you have a number one and radio, and it all comes in real quick and you're like, whoa, this is incredible. And everybody's like striving for that, right? You see songwriters and you're like, oh, wow, you can make that kind of money, or you're making nothing, right? And you're like, you got a small pub deal advance, or you don't, and you're working 2 or 3 jobs to be able to live. And then you're songwriting, hoping that you get that radio cut because you know you're not going to make it much from streaming. So there's like this lack of middle class in this industry. But if you do multiple things, and this is what I've said for years, if you can be good at multiple things, if you're a songwriter, but you're also really great at social media marketing, or you're really great at production, right? For me, it's been songwriting. For many years, I toured as a musician. And even when I was on the road, I was doing multiple jobs. I was a music director. I was a guitarist. I was the tour manager, which started making me a little bit more money. And I was like, oh, okay. If I do multiple things, I can make more money to feel comfortable and, make it a job. And then now for me, I look at my business and it's like, I've spent the years figuring out what works for me. And it's like songwriting will do what songwriting does. Production will do what production does. And you can get paid as a producer. And then you've got master royalties. But then I got into sync and was like, oh, that's a whole other realm of money, especially if you're doing customs for like trailers. Because those are a lot of times buyouts, hefty buyouts if they are. But sometimes they're like still hefty buyouts and you retain some publishing. So you're still seeing royalties come in over the years. And then I've always been an artist development producer. So I spend a lot of time like doing things for artist development, whatever that may be. And that to me is what brings me passion. But again, I've been able to kind of create my own middle class, right? It's like I've made a life for myself because I'm doing all these things. And it doesn't make you kind of reliant on just hopefully getting that song where you can quit your day job.
Is your workstation where you work the one that's in all the videos that you post?
Mm-hmm.
Is that at your house or somewhere else?
It is. It's at my house.
It is beautiful.
Thank you, man. You should come over sometime.
I'd love to.
Great example, right? Luckily it's very different here in Nashville now. But I bought my house in my early 20s in 2016, just as a musician, right? Which is hard to do. And it's getting harder and harder, and that's a whole other conversation. But I was able to get my house because I was touring as a musician, just with tons of different artists. I was tour managing some of those artists. I was being hired to do artist development for artists. I was songwriting and producing, and I was doing all of the things. And I was able to, make enough money to buy a house. And that was a huge success for me because it felt like it was a impossible feat in this industry. They're like, yeah, you can go be a songwriter and a musician and do all those things, but you don't really make money. So you're going to have to do something else eventually. And I didn't want to settle for that. So like when I did buy my house in my early 20s, doing just that was the win for me. It wasn't huge. Like, hey, I need to go buy this house. It was more so like, I wasn't trying to prove anybody wrong, but myself, of what I was told. This is what I was told, so it's what I believe.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't believe that. And I'm telling you, I was told by many people, not many, a few, because I was doing so many different things, I was told like, hey, just pick one. You're going to need to pick one, focus on that, and just go to town on that. And I was like, right, but I have the ability to do all these other things. Maybe they can work all in tandem. And yes, over the years, I have had to like drop off some of my other realms, right? Like some of the artist management type development stuff. I've had to like lighten up on that because my schedule's too busy in songwriting production. But I think they all feed each other. And I've learned so much from this world that feeds this world. And that I think ultimately is what's going to, number one, allow you to live somewhat comfortably as a musician in this, economy. But also it just makes you better at what you do because you're focused on multiple things and there's lessons from every single one of those industries, right? I'm learning that through this process.
Yeah.
I now know more than some publishers about the Chinese music market. That's been made clear.
I bet you do, dude.
I actually called.
Honestly, you could be probably a consultant for publishers on foreign.
Well, now I'm in the process of starting my own JV, so we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah.
But like,
there you go. But even with like, I think of like Sweden or like. It's just because I have a Avicii, because Dan Tominski was on the podcast saying, hey, brother. Yeah. So there's a lot of people that are like engaging with the content from there. Yeah. And it just gets me thinking, I'm like, I just never really thought about it like that,
Well, think about it from an artist perspective here, right? Like we spend so much time focused on a project And we just kind of go through the process of this is what we do. We record the project, we put it out, and we hope for a Spotify playlist, right? Yeah. And that's a win. And if it doesn't get it, then we feel, deflated. And you're forgetting about these whole other countries of music-loving people.
That actually are like really, really into music. And like Kip was saying, just to reference him again, like and this I thought was interesting. He's like, in Europe, people like pull up next to you at the bar or whatever, and they'll want to know like why you wrote that lyric.
Yep.
Instead of in the States, they'll just want a picture or whatever.
And you see that in live, I told you I toured for so many years, but I saw that whenever I would tour over in like Europe, the UK, the fans are way more engaged, not just with the artist, with the songs. And that was inspiring as a songwriter. This whole thing has been inspiring as a songwriter because now in my writing sessions, I had one today, my brain is like, there's a whole market of people out there that just want good songs. So instead of chasing that one thing that we're used to in this town, now I'm like, think global. Just write a good song. Because at the end of the day, there's one thing that is not missing in this world, or we're not lacking, are people that love music.
That's for sure.
I'd be surprised if there's somebody out there that's like, I hate music.
I think there's a lot of people that are disenfranchised with the lack of. So here's the thing. Like, let me back up. Yeah. First off, to get to where you're at, everyone likes the sound of being where you're at, sitting in this chair right now. But it's like, do you want to go through the journey that it took to get to where you're at?
Yeah.
That's a great question people need to ask themselves.
Yes. Yeah, it ain't easy.
Because, I mean, obviously you're a driver.
Yeah.
You go after it. You get it. Like, you were doing a lot on tours.
Yep.
None of which is being forced upon you. It's elective.
Yep.
That you're your own boss.
Yep.
And so you have to be a self-starter.
Yep.
And I think about the different verticals you were talking about within the music business and how you've kind of really like injected yourself into them through that process. And I think that that's something that is really important for people to kind of like think about too, because I feel like nowadays there's not a lot of ways to really generate, like you said, like a middle class. Correct. Like there's not the lunch pail songwriter thing anymore.
No.
Like in the 90s, you could have cuts and live fine.
Yeah.
Because people were
even
buying,
if it wasn't the top song on the record, like people were buying the record. You had a piece of that record.
Yeah, exactly. So you were selling units and making the mechanicals and all that. So now things are so different, and you're talking about starting to think globally. And I'm curious, like, when you're, because this is all like new to me kind of, and I kind of like, it's exciting, but it's also like, it even makes me think about my podcast. I'm like, I wonder what this would be like.
Yes.
If it was being, like if I was reaching an audience in a different country, in Europe.
Yep.
I don't know how the DSPs work with like sending stuff out.
Well, and that's the thing, because I believe, again, I don't know this for sure, but I believe our distribution companies that you sign up with for your podcast and for your music over here, most should be distributing to QQ and NetEase and all the Chinese market DSPs, I would assume. Something to look into, right? Like I release some of my composer stuff on Spotify and whatnot, and not once have I ever gone through the list of DSPs, because you see Spotify, Apple, and Amazon at the top and you're like, cool, we're covered.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, right, there's also that huge country on the other side of the world that doesn't have Spotify, Apple, and Amazon. You forget. And I've never gone through the list. I would assume QQ and all of them are on there, but maybe we should go look.
Yeah, that would be really interesting.
Because that's a huge market of people.
I know. Yeah, it very much is. And
English too, specifically, because you think about that where you're like, well, if it's not in Chinese and nobody's going to listen to it, but you also forget, like, it blew my mind how good of English, like dealing with Lay and his team, they had. It was seamless.
Are they taught English?
Most countries are. I don't know about China. I do know most. It's I know it's
like the world's language,
international language for like pilots and stuff. So
yeah,
you know, you forget about that. And like I said, Other Side, the song that went number one, there's a Chinese version and an English version on the record. The one that went number one was the English version. The Chinese version also charted. I think it was like 20 something, but the English version was the one that went number one in China.
Yeah, so interesting. I think there's something about English that's attractive in other countries, and even the accent. It's like if I was from the UK or something, or like Zane Lowe over at Apple. I don't know where he's from. Yeah. I think he's from New Zealand.
I think so, New Zealand, I believe.
Or some podcasters I listen to, and they have an accent, and it just like gives them an edge. Yeah. It makes it cool. Yeah. And in their hometown or whatever, everyone talks like that.
Well, it's funny because like I just finished a record over in London for a pop artist, and you know, a lot of the time artists, their accent disappears when they start singing. Hers does not. And we made sure in the record, like there were a couple days we did vocal days, and she was like kind of masking how thick her British accent was. And I was like, do not cover that up. Like that is brilliant because it's who you are, and it sounds so good. So there's a lyric in one of the songs where she actually references Spotify, and we were going back and forth on vocal takes, and she was saying Spotify, but when she was talking, it's Spotify.
Yeah, Spotify.
And I was like, Spotify sings so much better than Spotify. So there is something about accents that's just, it's engaging. There's something cool about it.
Yeah, and she would have an edge in the States.
Right, exactly. And that's what I told her. She's so used to obviously over there. I was like, no, people are going to love hearing Spotify on the song in a British accent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you work with primarily pop acts?
Yeah, so back to the idea that I've always kind of done things a little bit left of center. I kind of came to be in the pop space more than the country space. I've worked with obviously plenty of country artists and love working in country, but I have a pop tendency for sure. So
that's a better space to be in for
and there
money.
I think there was an early period, probably in like the 2017 era, when I was like really starting to get busy in songwriting and production. I had this it felt like a chip on my shoulder where I was like, well, I don't want to get pigeonholed into that country lane where it's like you just keep pumping out the same stuff. So I turned down a lot of opportunities that probably were stupid to turn down, but I loved being the pop guy. And that became more and more popular, obviously, in country and Nashville in general. But no, now it's pretty kind of across the board. I feel like when I'm in Nashville, I'm doing a lot of country. Folk, is having a moment. So it's like I'm doing a lot of that. But then I also work with a lot of artists here who are pop artists who I've worked with for years. But again, so much of my work comes from LA and London, and that's primarily pop.
Yeah. Do you go to LA a bit?
Yeah, every 2 months. I've been doing that. Again, back to the business side of things. That's what made the most sense. I lived out there for a bit, hated it. It's just not.
What part?
I lived in Burbank and Studio City. So great areas, I love the weather. It's cool. And I've said this for years, I lived in Nashville first. I'm from New Jersey. So I moved down here when I was 18 years old, and I liked the speed of life. I grew up right outside of New York City. So I just kind of loved the vibe of Nashville. When I moved to LA, the weather was cool. The community was not the same. It just felt different. I didn't love it.
Colder vibes.
Yeah, it just didn't feel as creative. It didn't feel as collaborative. It felt like everybody was chasing the same thing, and you'd throw your friend under the bus, in a heartbeat to get there. That's what it felt like, and it still feels that way to me. Doesn't mean I don't love going out there, because I get a lot of work, and obviously working in film as well. Like there's a lot that I do out there. So I think probably 4 or 5 years ago now, I decided from a business perspective, as things got busy, I was like, what makes the most sense to me is if I'm out there every 2 months, it's like, I guarantee you there's still people out there that just assume I live out there. Because that's the most you're going to see anybody out there anyway, right? Is like you could be friends with your neighbor and not see them for 2 months out there.
Yeah, I go 6 months without seeing some of my friends because they live an hour and a half away.
So there are a handful of people out there that I write with that I don't think they even realize that I don't live out there. So and every 2 months, when I started doing that, it made the most. Like I was seeing business come from it. I was getting records, I was getting cuts. And people knew who I was, and I wasn't getting forgotten either. That's such a thing in this industry where it's like you have to have people talking about you. People are going to forget you and then forget to like bring you in on a session or recommend their artist for you. So ever since I started doing the every 2 month thing, and I'll usually go out for like a week to 2 weeks max, sometimes 3 weeks, but like 2 weeks is
what does that look like?
Process-wise? I mean, it's an investment for sure in myself. Like, and obviously it's my business, so it becomes a nice write-off, right? But like, for me, it's a matter of knowing if I have this much each year that I should budget for my business, I'm going to go and spend that much because I'm doing every 2 months. The process will be finish what I'm doing here. I'll probably be in the middle of things, fly out there. I found a place that I love staying, and it's in West Hollywood. It's a hotel called Le Parc, and they're actually like somewhat tied into the music industry. You'll see artists there all the time on tour stops. And that's how I found out about it. Was I got posted up there from a label once when I was producing a record. And they do, if you reach out to them, like and you talk to the head of sales or whatever, they do like music deals, entertainment deals. So they'll give you like, I think it's like a 30% deal. I don't know if I'm supposed to be sharing this, sorry. But it feels like an apartment. It does not feel like a hotel. It doesn't look like a hotel. It's in a quiet neighborhood. And that was the selling point for me. It was like, I kept feeling like I was going home to an apartment at the end of the day, as opposed to going to a hotel room and it feeling really sterile. It's got like a fireplace and like a little living area and a bedroom area. And once I started doing that, it got a lot easier because I gave myself an actual process every 2 months. It was like, you're going to the same spot where they start to know you, right? It's like the front desk people know you, they welcome you back. It feels like you're just going back to another home. And that was the hotel we wrote Other Side in. That's why it didn't feel like we were writing in a hotel. It was like the studio that I normally rent was booked out that day. So I was like, let's just write in the hotel room because there's a whole living area. It just felt like we were writing in an apartment.
So are you booking rights ahead of time for your trip? Yeah,
usually. I've got a manager that I've worked with for many, many years, and that's kind of been on her where she just like knows. I'll typically give her a month at least of leeway to be able to go, he's going to be in town these 2 weeks. That gives us time to talk with publishers and management companies of artists that we work with for them to schedule out what those 2 weeks look like. But yeah, rarely when I'm out there, I'll take the weekends off usually just to like recuperate or work on production stuff. But when I'm out there, I book every day usually. Just go to town. Same thing when I'm in London, I'll book every possible day and try to make the most of it.
Yeah. I think that's the smartest thing.
Yeah.
Unless you go to like the beach.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I'm like, look, personal time is important. And I think that's the nice thing is like a lot of times too, like my fiance will travel with me and, you know, she's able to work remotely. So like, you know, there've been a couple times we've gone out to LA and on the weekend we'll rent a camper van and go up to like Sequoia National Park, which is what we did last time. And it's like a nice little getaway. It's something that we can't do while we're here. And we get to go see things that are beautiful and
giant redwoods.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. And so she came over to London with me on one of my trips this year, which was nice. So on the weekends, like we went up to Edinburgh and, you know, did some sightseeing. And that's the thing. I'm telling you, the one most important thing I'm slowly starting to realize, especially since we're constantly like hustling in this industry, is enjoying the ride while you're on it. Forget, we always feel like we're climbing to something, like we need to get to the top. We need to get to the top. And I'll tell you what, this Chinese #1 is such a great example of that because like the day I got it, it's like, hey, I got this #1 and everybody's just like, cool, dude. What does that mean? It's in China. Like, I don't know. I'm constantly reminding myself this is the fun part. And you hear that from a lot of people, especially the people that have, you know, hit the quote unquote ceiling or top of the mountain. The whole fun part was the ride up. So I'm like constantly having to remind myself, like, enjoy the ride while you're doing this. I'm going to be over in London because I'm producing a record. Let's find things to do. Let's go see things. You know? And that to me, I think, look, at the end of the day too, as a creative, it can only inspire more creativity. Seeing things, going places you've never been. My favorite thing to do while I'm traveling is go find a coffee shop in the most random part of town.
That's my favorite thing. Like the little hole in the wall.
Yep.
Mom and pop coffee shop.
Some of my favorite memories are all that. When I toured, I called it my coffee posse in the morning. And I told the guys, I was like, here's the deal. I'm going to go find a coffee shop in the city. It's usually off the beaten path, craft coffee, something local. And I always made it, I'm not waiting on anybody. I leave the bus at 8 a.m. And if you want to join, you'll be there. And I created these like great friendships out of that. Some of our favorite memories that we reminisce about are coffee posse memories.
I love that.
It's
coffee
incredible,
posse.
Dude. And I've seen some of the coolest and met some of the coolest people at these coffee shops.
I bet,
It's a cool way to explore that. It's like finding a thing. Find a thing that brings you to random places of the world. It just kind of like opens up your mind and you're like, wow, this place is beautiful. And we kind of forget that when we get stuck into our like everyday sessions in the morning and this and that and like same coffee shop and same town. If you have the opportunity, like go find things while you're doing the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm interested in what you have to say to young people that are trying to get that I don't know how to word this in an eloquent way, but my view on like the Nashville thing or the LA thing, if I was to give advice to people, like I had a guitar student one time and he was going to go to Belmont and like long story short, I was like, well, since you're not a writer and you're not an artist and you're a guitar player and that's all you know how to do, the most you're ever going to make, it might be $100,000, but you could get dropped at any time and you're replaceable.
Yep.
And it's not like a career where you get to retire because you're only making money.
Right.
Unless you have like some legend that you end up playing for, you know?
Sure.
And I have so many buddies on tour, like making like $60,000 or whatever. And that might sound like a lot to some, but it's not a lot after tax.
No. And especially as you like do it for many, many years and that's it. Because you don't have touring, especially. That was something I learned real quick is like, you don't have a lot of time for other things because you're out every weekend. When you're home, you're trying to recuperate. And don't get me, I love touring. I miss it a lot of the time. But it was really hard to tour on the weekends and then come back and then my 2 or 3 days home, go creatively into songwriting sessions. And when that started taking, I was like, I need to focus on the songwriting sessions for now. And still do the other things. Again, you hit the nail on the head. My advice to anybody and anybody trying to get into music or wanting to figure out what they do. And for instance, your buddy who's the guitarist, figure out how that being a great guitarist and being a guitarist in general, like how does that relate to some of these other areas of the industry? What else can you offer? Right? Because we are in an industry where there's plenty of us, right?
It's bleak.
Yeah. And Nashville, especially, I used to say this when I first moved here and just started like having a little bit of success as a musician. I'd have people ask me like, what is it like? Any advice on how to like make it as a musician or songwriter or whatever? And my advice always was, first thing you have to do is come to terms and understand that you are not the best, because you will be rudely awakened in Nashville that guy on the corner of the street is 10 times better than you. And don't get me wrong, I'm very much be the best at what you do. Do that. But you also have to be willing to understand there is so much talent in this town and in this industry that like anything else, you have to have your own approach. If you have an approach, you're a good hang is a big one on the road, right? Like if you're a good hang, you're good at your instrument and what you do. This goes for songwriting as well. If you have something to offer, that's the value in this industry. And that's why I'm always saying, what else can you offer? If you play guitar, that means, yeah, maybe you can be a session player here in town. But also, like, how can that maybe translate into songwriting? I have a buddy in this town who he had moved down from New York, and one of the greatest musicians, and he's on lots of records right now, Johnny Fung, great dude, love him to death. He had texted me, ironically, like the night before he moved here with his wife from New York. They were moving down from Brooklyn, and we had met through a touring gig that he like subbed in for. And I was like, wow, this guy's like the greatest musician I've ever met. And he just plays everything great, right? Like I play everything like a producer, right? I'm like, I can play every instrument really well because I need to. You're not going to see me shred on any of those instruments. And that's what makes me a producer. I go hire the right musicians. I have the ear for what I want to hear, and then I go find the musicians, right? That's what being a producer is. But Johnny had texted me the night before he came down. He goes, hey, just want to let you know I'm going to be in town. I'd love to get some like session work. I know you're a producer. And I was like, heck yeah, dude, would love that. What are you doing tomorrow? And I had a songwriting session with an artist that I love and have worked with for years named Mena, who's a killer pop R&B artist and amazing vocalist. And our third had to drop out like last minute. I was like, do you songwrite? He's like, nah, but I might get into it. And I was like, why don't you just come anyway? He's like, I'm in. He came over and he just kind of walked around my like synth wall, is playing all these synths. And he ended up writing the hook of Mena's song Smoke Signals on the synth. And it's a brilliant hook. Never would have thought of it because he was playing it with the like pitch bender. And I was like, so cool. And that's the synth part on the record. And so he is a writer on that song, just as if he was writing the lyric, even splits.
Yeah.
And that was one of Mena's favorite sessions is because she loves, and we've learned through that process, writing with musicians can be really inspiring. So I think musicians have their place in songwriting. Figure out how to do it. Johnny figured it out that day. He was like, you know, I may not be able to think of the melodies, but he could play them. And he started playing them. And that inspired Mena and me to like sing the melodies and craft the lyric around that. So there are ways, and that's the key. Is like if you want to do something in this industry, figure out multiple things and what your talent can lend itself to, other than just putting it in a box going, well, I'm a guitarist. What does that mean? There are several things you can do, and your talent can lend its expertise to it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely one of the, I think, I've been told, but I also think it has to be one of the hardest industries with the lowest financial return on investment of time.
Yeah.
And
yes, and it's gotten worse.
It is such a gamble.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It is such a gamble. And
I was told in high school, this is a story I've kind of held on to for a long time because it like, you know, when you're in high school and you like talk to your guidance counselor and they're supposed to be helping shape you. And I actually loved my guidance counselor. Shout out Miss Shuma, I think was her name. But she was a realist for sure. We're from New Jersey, so we say it how it is, you know. And I remember sitting in her office, I think it was my junior year of high school. And I told her like, yeah, I played sports. Most people didn't even know I was in music. I just kind of did it on the side. And I knew I wasn't going to be a D1 college football player. So I was like, I really like Nashville. I think I want to be like a touring musician or a songwriter or something. And she gave me like an actual percentage. I think she was like, it's like a 3% industry. She said something like that, where it's like 3% of people not become famous. That's not the thing. Because we also know like famous means nothing. It doesn't mean you're making money. Sometimes it does.
Means you're in a lot of debt.
Yeah, most of the time. And I remember her going, 3% make a career out of it. And that stuck with me. That's honestly probably one of the things that's been lodged in the back of my brain, going, make a career out of it. How do you make a career out of what you do? And that for me has been, well, you should learn to do a bunch of different things and then figure out how they all feed each other. And then they'll kind of work themselves out. And they have. And, it doesn't mean, it's easy. It's still an industry where it's like, man, you gotta, especially with social media now where there's so much content that.
Yeah, noise.
Yeah. And you have to get above that and celebrate your friends' wins, celebrate your own wins, whatever that may look like, and keep pushing forward, because it is an industry of Stockholm syndrome, and it's an industry of, not really being rewarded for a lot of your talent. It gets overlooked. And then when it does get rewarded, it feels great. But that, dissipates. And I had to remind myself of that with this, the K-pop thing. Sorry, M-pop. It's going to disappear in a couple weeks. He'll still be playing it, and the song is what lives. And that to me has been the best part of this experience, is watching the videos online of 80,000 people in another country singing my song.
Yeah, you need to text me your favorite.
Yeah.
Favorite video of it.
It's insane.
Live.
And it really is. That reminds me of the beauty of what we do. Because if I knew that when I was writing that day, there's no way I would have.
It would have been a different song.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I'm trying to remind myself, like, don't think about writing for that. Think about the inspiration that it brings you. Like, think about the idea of, like, if I'm writing this song, right? I wrote a song today. Think about this being sung by all these people, whether it's in this country or another country, doesn't matter. At the end of the day, your song is doing something, and it lives forever.
Mm-hmm.
That's the inspiring part about being a songwriter. It's like that song will live way past our lives.
Yeah.
And I've had that conversation a lot recently with a lot of artists who are kind of on like the verge or just starting out. And they're like, well, I only got 1,000 streams on my song. And that feels like a failure nowadays, right? I'm sure you feel it with podcast numbers, right? You look and you're like, well, that one didn't perform as well, or the YouTube video. There's still 1,000 people that just listen to your song. That's a win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. My big win for this thing, and I have to keep it super, super micro, is I have 2 goals with it.
Yeah.
Make a friend, and number 2, if it produces fruit in one listener's life.
Yeah.
If one person gets anything out of this podcast, in this episode, I did my job.
Yeah.
Like, I have to think about just that one person out there.
Yep.
Because as soon as you start thinking, like you're saying about writing, like as soon as you start thinking you're writing for this thing, and then you start to like filter everything through that lens.
Correct.
And that filter, and then you end up not having what's best.
Yeah.
But what you think should be best.
Yeah.
And I think that.
Well, and you're also at that point we're making art. Your podcast is art. Like, all of this is art that we're hoping people want to consume.
Yeah.
And that's artist development 101. Anytime I'm working with an artist as like a producer or a songwriter, my goal is like, who are you? What's your message? What's your brand? Like, what overall do you want your artistry to be about? Because it's subjective. And at the end of the day, hopefully people want to consume it. And if you do something authentic, I think people do want to consume that. But as soon as you start writing for somebody else or doing something for somebody else, and that's your only focus, then you're not really making art that's subject to what you are inspired by and love.
Yeah.
And I think people want to relate. We enjoy relating with people, and that's why we like art. We see physical art, or we hear a song and we go, man, I love that because I can relate with it. That's the goal.
Totally, man. I love that. Mark Siegel. It's been a pleasure.
Stephan.
Yeah. Yeah, you got it, man.
Thanks, bro. That's my win.
It's been awesome. It's been awesome having you chat
bro.
About some of this stuff, because hopefully it'll get people thinking like maybe there's something out of the box they can do.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I appreciate you having me, dude.
Yeah. I'm excited to. I would honestly love to come down and hear some of the score stuff.
Please do. Yeah.
What's that guy's name? Wim Hof? Or no, that's the breather guy.
Yeah, that's the ice bath guy.
Yeah, that's the ice bath guy. What's his name? The famous composer that doesn't know how to play instruments? You know who I'm talking about?
Who doesn't play instruments?
He like plays like synth stuff, but he says he doesn't know how to play an instrument, but he's like the legend.
I mean, not Hans Zimmer.
Yeah, Hans Zimmer.
Yeah, Hans. Dude, I'm so inspired by Hans.
Hans.
I mean, he's still a great musician, but yes, but that was at the beginning of my scoring career, as we call it, right? Like, I think that was why in my brain, I was like, well, you can't be a composer. You don't know how to transcribe all these string parts. You don't even know how to write string parts. What I do know is like, I have the tools that I have, and I know what sounds and feels good. And I just started playing things. And yes, there have been a couple times where I've like sent my scores off to get transcribed. And, you know, they're like, hey, dude, a cello can actually play this note. And I'm like, well, it played it on my keyboard, so I don't know what to tell you. Change it to a viola. But yeah, similar. When I realized I was like, yeah, Hans Zimmer, great musician, doesn't mean he plays all those instruments.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing as a producer. We've gotten into this world of tracks guys now, but like, which I'm a tracks guy as well. But record producers at the end of the day, back in the day, they didn't touch anything. They were just putting the right musicians together, the right engineers, and creating the right environment for these artists. Now it's like, as a producer, you're like, I need to know how to engineer. I need to know how to build tracks and play guitar and play this. And
yeah, Rick Rubin's a good example of that.
Great example. Yeah.
I love
just
the
a
stuff
pure
he
producer.
says.
Yeah.
I love that. All right, brother. Well, where can people go to listen to your stuff? Because I'm sure there's a playlist with some of your tunes.
Yeah. You can my website's got it. You can obviously find me on social media at Mark Siegel, MarkSiegel. See, we got that spelling.
A-L.
Not A-L. E-L. Siegel. Or you can go to marksiegelofficial.com, and that's got some links to playlists and all that fun stuff. And, you know, all the artists that I work with are artists that I absolutely adore. And you're going to find some incredible artists out of it as well.
Okay, cool. And if someone's like pretty far ahead in their musical journey and they're like, man, I might want to talk about producing something, they contact your management through your website. Yeah,
there's a contact page on the website, and you can always hit me on social media. I sift through messages every once in a while. A lot of times they end up getting to requests or whatever, but I kind of have tried to make it a point to sift through messages every, couple of weeks to catch up with things.
Good. All right, man. Well, it's been a pleasure, and until next time. When you have your next number one.
Yeah, that's why we're here, right? Like, we can only hope.
Oh, you will, man.
Thanks, bro.
I think this whole season for you is going to be really cool. And it's like this whole new open door.
Really is.
Yeah. When they open, walk through them.
That's what I'm trying to do, man. Thank you.
I love it. All right. Peace.